Piers and Alok here. We decided to record our podcast live today. We're trying to do it on a Sunday, but we're doing it today. So if you're watching this, this is the basically our podcast is the AI assisted organization, which you can sign up for. So hopefully it's all live now. So here we go. So this is the AI assisted organization podcast hosted by myself, Piers Linney, and my co-host and co-founder of Implement AI, Dr. Alok Shukla. Hello, Alok.
Morning, Piers. How are you?
We're not traveling this week, which makes a bit of a difference.
Back to normal routines. Are you? How's the gym going?
I'm doing body recomp, so I'm also wearing myself out. To be quite frank, I needed a bit more sleep, but I'm getting there slowly. I'm trying to drop 10 kilograms or change it into get rid of it and add more sort of a muscle mass. But it's a hard work trying to get into that Goldilocks zone.
No, I've been using AI.
When are you getting in the gym?
Yeah, no, running. So like I'm basically using like an app to like track my heart rate, so I stay in zone 2 for as long as possible. So technology can help.
Best present anyone's ever bought me was my Aura ring you got me for my birthday. So anyone hasn't got one of those, go and invest in one. Right, let's get on to some AI. So we had a couple of events last week. This week we've only got one event really, which is an interesting one though. It's with SFC Capital. That's going to be tomorrow night. It's Tuesday in the UK. So a bit of a fireside chat there with some of the basically their sort of portfolio businesses and various other people, advisors about artificial intelligence. So that's going to be really quite interesting. So the show, as always, if you don't know, we cover AI for business news. So we try and pick out all the news from the AI world, all that noise that you see, so you don't have to read it all. But specifically AI news relating to business. Some of it's kind of more high level, but it's got a longer term potential impact. And we have a theme as well. That's for the second half. And the theme this week we thought would be quite interesting. Is that we, especially Alok and the team, have been actually working with our AI call agents and making lots of, in this case, outbound calls. Now, I'd expect them often to be inbound calls for sort of customer support and service, which they're very, very good at, and triage. But what we've been testing as well is the ability for these AI call agents to make outbound phone calls. So we've got some fantastic sort of feedbacks, insights, and we can talk about the performance. Yeah, basically to grow a business. It's kind of sales related, really, not so much saving money and cost related. So that's going to be interesting. So let's get into the news. One of the things that's been prevalent, and we're going to talk about why some of the big LLM players are quite scared of actually launching their models due to elections and various things going on. But we're getting through the election season now in various countries. Is that it's deepfakes, and we're all now aware of them. You can create one very, very quickly for yourself in probably 20 seconds if you go to HeyGen or Synthese and have a play. And YouTube now and Meta are doing a similar thing as well. They're now putting through their kind of a system where if you see something you don't like, you can complain. What they're doing now is that they're allowing you to request the removal of AI generated content that simulates your face or your voice, which is an interesting one, because that's probably slightly more ambiguous. So YouTube have rolled out a policy. This was last month, actually, that allows you to take it down in the same way you do a bit like a copyright sort of an infringement strike. So you basically, if you spot your voice or you see someone that looks like you or is trying to be you anywhere on YouTube, you can get a strike. And eventually, if they get more than 3 strikes, I guess, they'll be taken offline as well. So it's expanding on the sort of previous program they've had. And they're all trying to put in place these responsible AI agendas because we're seeing more and more of this now. And it's being used in some nefarious ways as well. So look out for that. And again, Meta's doing the same thing. And you probably see this rolled out across any sort of social media site where you're going to have images of human beings. I'm not sure if they're doing it on Twitter yet, but we'll see. It'll come.
Probably will, but you think of the sophistication and the power that they need to like detect and manage these things. Like that's a whole other thing in itself, isn't it?
Well, I think what they're doing is a bit like on the sort of copyright strikes is they're putting the onus on you. So you have to find it, discover it, or somebody reports it to you, and then you basically report it to YouTube and Meta as well. So that's interesting developments. Moving on, one of the companies it's in our news updates like every week now is 11 Labs. So we work with 11 Labs, use it quite a lot. It's probably it's the best producer of human voices, I would say.
Yeah.
Although there are other ones coming, which we're going to mention a bit later on. And I find this really interesting, this one. So they have essentially now done a deal with the estates of some iconic stars, mostly dead ones, so that they can now, and last week we announced, well, we didn't announce it, we reported that 11 Labs had launched their Reader app. So now you can get any text, and you can have any voice, or your voice, or the voice of the author if they wanted to do it themselves, and it can read any text. So if you've got, I don't know, white paper you want to read on the way to the office, on the tube or in the car, it can just read it for you. So you don't have to worry about have like an audio book and somebody doing it for you. It's any content, which is fascinating. But so the obvious and natural evolution of that is that people can now use their voices, an author, to read the content. And now they can use, if they've done a deal with the estate of the dead famous person, you can use their voice. So they've got, I think, like, they had an example I watched of like Judy Garland.
Yes, I saw that one.
Reading The Wizard of Oz. I mean, it's just insane, because it just, I mean, as far as I know what Judy Garland sounds like, it sounds like Judy Garland. They've got James Dean, Burt Reynolds, and Sir Laurence Olivier. So this is fascinating now. You can bring people to life, quite literally. They're no longer with us, to read and share content that they produce in their lifetimes. So I think that's really quite interesting. Now, you can't use these voices in 11 Labs for yourself. This is only for content that the estate's deemed relevant and suitable for use of that voice.
No, that makes sense. But I mean, like, it's going to become, imagine the toys that are going to come out afterwards, isn't it? Right? Like in terms of like teddy bears and things like that can
Well, dead people's teddy bears.
No, but I'm saying, like, but in terms of like, interactive
Yeah.
stuff like that, like there's so many characters can license that whole, their digital likeness essentially in different ways, isn't it? Right. So, and also
What do you mean?
biography.
Yeah. And you're in business, though, you can now, if you've got a live or dead person, right? A voice or a person you think that actually works for your brand now, what they're going to be able to do is license their voice. Just like in the future, actors are going to license their likeness.
Yeah.
There'll be digital versions of them. You can now license your voice, or if you wanted to, you could seek to license the voice of somebody who you think fits your brand, who was famous, to read content and engage your customers in this new and quite interesting way.
Like Scarlett Johansson, you mean?
Yeah, she's going to make a fortune, isn't she? Although I don't think she needs the money. She told OpenAI to get lost. But moving on to 11 Labs again. So 11 Labs have launched. Again, this is really interesting as well, because we all try and generate content, and often this is not the quality that we want it to be, and then you have to start all over again, essentially. And now 11 Labs have launched a thing called a vocal remover, and the idea here is to extract crystal clear speech from any audio. Now I watched these videos, so you don't have to, and they've got a guy who's sort of speaking into a microphone.
Like
somebody's literally blowing a leaf blower in his face. Yeah. He's sort of in his hair, and his cheeks are sort of they're pushed backwards, and they put it through the 11 Labs of vocal remover, and literally it just picks out his voice and just deadens everything else. The background noise is gone. So when you've got your recording back, and you spent all day out recording something or doing vox pops, whatever it is you wanted to do, and you realize that there's some aircraft, police engine, siren, or whatever it is in the background, you haven't ruined your day. You haven't got to go back and try and fix it and do it all over again. You can now take it out. So again, the 11 Labs, I mean, there are other people doing this, which we'll mention in a moment. But the power of voice and audio and the way in which you can manipulate it now is incredible. And again, we always talk about exponential change and the rate at which things are happening. And it seems like every single month they're sort of pushing the boundaries, aren't they?
Yeah, totally.
So really, there's no such thing now, no excuse now for poor audio, almost, poor video, anything like that at all. Any content you've produced, you can always try, and even if you've made a hash of it, you can always try and get something back and use it. Just making life easier for all of us. It also means you don't have to pay. This is the key part at the end of the day. You don't have to pay a lot of money for some sound engineer to try and fix this stuff for you. You can do it yourself. Another one, if you haven't used it before, just mention it, is the Adobe podcast enhancer, audio enhancer. Similar thing. You can use that as well. That does a great job. Right, moving on. So we're talking about voice tech quite a lot today. So they've got one called Varley 2. Microsoft's got DALL-E, the text to image. This is the voice generation now, and they haven't actually launched it yet, but they've announced it. And this is a voice generator, And apparently, or maybe it's just PR, it's so good that they're afraid to release it. So a lot of these things, it can take quite a bit of time to learn your voice, the sound, the intonation, to get it just right. But this one apparently it can pick up your voice and replicate it in a couple of seconds. So what you're seeing is, this is not the only time we've seen this. You saw OpenAI announce Sora, which is this super powerful text to video. But since then, you've got Luma, Kling, other ones have arrived. But Sora have never actually formally released. So OpenAI have never actually formally released Sora because they're worried about the power of this stuff. So Microsoft say that it's a significantly improved AI system for speech synthesis, but they don't think the world is ready for it. So I don't know how powerful it is. And basically, they're saying that this can replicate your voice super accurately from just a few seconds. A sample of your speech is only a few seconds long. It can create complex sentences, all the intonation, and it's going to be commercially available pretty soon, but they don't quite know well. So again, a bit like 11 Labs, which kind of does this now, to be honest with you. You can do this already, but everyone's realizing that voice is going to be really powerful and something where they can actually, make quite a bit of money. So you're going to see more of these things rolled out. It's funny, isn't it? I don't understand why they wouldn't release it. They keep announcing these things. They're not releasing them.
I think because the issue is that they just would not be able to potentially track how many fakes, misrepresentations of politicians and stuff like that. It doesn't take much to kind of turn a disengaged or apathetic voter into a negative voter or something like this, right? I think that they're just looking at how they can kind of minimize some of those things. But I mean, look at it this, right, Piers? These are the things that they've told us about. And they're still not releasing it. Imagine
the iceberg. It's a bit sticking out of the water. The iceberg.
Yeah, imagine the stuff that they've got, which they're not even ready to talk about yet. This is the point, right? That the faster you start integrating this stuff, the more you can benefit.
Yeah, I think in the US especially, they're super paranoid about this upcoming election, which is November, which is quite somewhere where, because they don't want Joe Biden or Donald Trump, if Joe Biden makes it to the election, ringing people up and saying things they probably shouldn't. So again, keep your eye on voice. Voice is becoming incredibly powerful and a fantastic way to engage with customers and prospects. Right, moving on. This is interesting as well, right? So there has been other ones that have sort of been playing at this, but now Meta's got another new model. Again, they've released it for testing, not public release quite yet. And this is text to 3D. Okay, so you've had text to 2D, text to image, which has moved on massively. It's extremely powerful. But this is now text to a 3D image in under a minute. It takes under a minute to generate it. So this is Meta's move the goalposts again. I don't think this is open source. I'm not sure. It doesn't actually say. And this is basically a state-of-the-art model. So if you think about this now, you can now have a thought, a vision of something, and you can create a 2D version of it and just tweak it until it's perfect. And then if you want to, you can turn the 2D object you've created into a 3D object. Or now you can go straight from your thought text, your prompt, to the 3D object. And then I haven't done this yet, but I am determined to do this one day, when we find some time to to do anything else, is to go from a thought to a 3D printed object. And that's where this is going. So being able to create, a 3D, and by 3D, it means, something, like this glass, right? And you can move around it any angle and look at it, which again, fantastic for prototyping, for showing customers things, new objects or design, be it sort of physical design, technical design, or even artwork as well. So again, I always say that the beauty of AI for me in many ways is that I am creative in my head, but I struggle to get it out. And now this makes you, anyone working for you, essentially a very, very effective and adept creative.
And this is going to have two dimensions of impact. There's one dimension, which is obviously Meta have the smart glasses, right? where they've obviously got the augmented reality and everything like this. So obviously being able to generate 3D objects and 3D environments on the fly as part of the glasses, a bit like this kind of Ready Player One or different types of things, that's going to evolve as this AI technology is evolving. But then also like many other businesses, like for example, my parents are moving house and like they need to get some wardrobes, and then the company that installs wardrobes, they don't do visualization and they don't show what it looks like. And it's like, well, how can you know what to spend on or invest in without seeing those things, basically? But if more and more businesses are able to then say, okay, this is what the wardrobe would look like in your room, or at least the size of it, so you can kind of see what the rest of the room and everything is, it's just going to take you that much closer. So these seem like high-tech announcements, but actually very everyday businesses could benefit from these, some of these.
What's going to be interesting is professions like architecture, where you'll be able to sort of almost picture a house, get it out of your head, and then the model will know what's physically possible. So within those parameters, it'll design your house, and then you can just say, oh, okay, and it will do all the ducting, pipe work, design work, because that's just technical, really, and it'll do that for you. And then you can even start populating in terms of how you want it to look inside. So I think that profession is going to change massively within 5 years, or anything like that. Anything to do with design is being democratized, which is not great if you're a designer in some cases. So like anything else, if you're designing and you're watching this, you've got to move up the value pyramid. You've got to help people get their dreams almost out of their head onto paper and help them use these tools to do that, as opposed to trying pushing back on these tools, because eventually, that wave's going to wash over you.
Yeah, completely. I think in construction, like the combination of prefabricated floors, almost like I went past a building and I could see that the different floors had actually been labeled and put in place over time. And obviously combining that with the ability to like visualize and design interiors in the way you want it, I think there's going to be huge breakthroughs there.
Right, moving on. So another in the news again is Perplexity AI. Now, if you've never heard of Perplexity AI, go and use it. So they've kind of decided, I think, that they want to try and reinvent search. So in its simplest form, Perplexity it's a large language model. You can ask it things, and what it does, it kind of approaches your queries more as like a search engine would. But what it also does is always gives you the source, doesn't it? So you know where the information's come from. So now they've introduced what they've called Pro Search. And this is really interesting and potentially has some real business use cases. So they've upgraded their that's what they're saying is they've upgraded their ability to do sort of problem solving and also research. So they think they're revolutionizing knowledge discovery, they call it, by making it more efficient and faster as well. So what they're really doing is using multi-step reasoning. You give it a query or search query, it'll go away, come back with an answer, and you can keep tweaking it and sort of fine tuning your research. And it can even, they think, can pinpoint cases for lawyers. It's great for market research, summarize trend analysis if you're a marketeer as well. It can debug code for developers, although a lot of the models can do that now. So they're kind of moving into a B2B use case where if you need to research something for your business, for your product, you can now use this tool. So if you haven't tried Perplexity AI, it's free. Download the app and have a go. And it is quite interesting, and it's a different model than the ones you're probably used to. We tend to use, don't we? Claude 3.5 or OpenAI, ChatGPT 4.0. Don't tend to use Perplexity a lot.
That's for research, but I think they're in different ways, right? But I think to find answers, like I think some topics where I'm trying to like get the context from which wouldn't be normally available in a normal search, because it can aggregate different things, it can be quite good in that regard. But I definitely keen to try this one out, this Pro Search. That could be cool.
And then moving on, last one, we've mentioned it before, Figure AI. So you may have seen a podcast, you mentioned that. So Figure AI is a robotics company, and they've got these sort of humanoid robots. If you want to know why they're all trying to build humanoid robots, it's because our world was built for humans. So our own form factor, we're just trying to replicate it. And these things can navigate our built environment pretty well. So Figure AI built a pretty useful humanoid robot. What they then did was to basically, rather than trying to design specialist models to run these humanoid robots, was to use a generalist model. So they put OpenAI, ChatGPT, I'm not sure which one it was, probably 4, into this humanoid robot, and it became very capable because it knows what everything is. It knows, if you say move a glass from here to there, it knows how to do it. Now, earlier this year, I think it was actually in Q1 this year, they deployed one of these things in a BMW factory. So if you're look, when you bought a BMW, it may have helped. But what they've basically done is have this robot try and replicate some of the tasks of humans, quite simple ones, like moving items from a shelving into a machine. Apparently, it's within a few centimeters now in terms of accuracy, in terms of placing things. So you can't do really complicated work, maybe reaching under a seat and bolting it to the car. But what it can start to do now, which you see in Amazon warehouses now, is start to replace humans on the really repetitive, boring tasks.
Pick in place and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we always say that whether it's knowledge work or whether it's robotics, AI, the kind of current arc of AI, it's not replacing humans. Well, it is in some cases. What it's doing there is replacing humans or preventing humans having to do really mundane, repetitive work. Humans then move on and do more meaningful work that adds more value. And you're now seeing this in the BMW factory. So I think this is a test. It's not been actually deployed yet, but you can see now that we've always said this, that when these things cost, I don't know, 100 grand, and you can finance them, so they're costing you a few £1,000s a month. It starts to cost the same as a human or even less. And I even saw a video just on the different news point, but a similar thing where they had a humanoid robot working and a person somewhere in Asia, I think it was, only earning about £3 an hour, I think, actually moving it using VR glasses. So there's actually there's a middle step now where you have a humanoid robot working, but the person is operating it with VR goggles and gloves on their hands. They can see everything, touch everything, and they're a lower paid worker in a different geography. So that's quite an interesting play as well. But again, that's like e-fax. It's between fax and email, an intermediate step of technology, which won't last for very long. Right, that was it for this week. That was all the news we thought that was pretty relevant for business. Lots of other news about consumer AI, but we're focusing on business. So if you're new to our podcast, please sign up to our AI Insider newsletter. Sign up to the podcast as well and rate it, please. We have go to our website, implementai.io. We have a training academy, which is actually quite important. It's your first step in AI. And what we really want to do is what we're doing in these podcasts really is trying to educate about AI for business, obviously, but in our themes as well is teach you about what it is that we do. And what we do, we've spent 18 months doing this now, and we focus on what we call intelligent AI automation. So this is essentially working with you and your business to automate processes, workflows, repetitive tasks, to augment humans. And we basically design fully managed AI agents. You can call these co-pilots, bots, whatever you want to call them, but fully managed AI agents that work in your business with your workforce, your human resource. So it augments it. So you're going to have a payroll of human resource, and you're going to have a payroll, essentially a virtual resource, and they work together. And that's what we do. We design them, deploy them, and manage them for you. Right, so let's get on to the theme. So Alok's going to lead on this. I'm going to ask you questions, Alok, because you've got a lot of work on this. So one of our specialisms is voice. So we mentioned 11 Labs and the voice, but voice is super powerful, right? So voice is how we are going to interact with technology in the future, right? Not all the time. You can't sit on a train or chatting to your phone. You may use type in some cases. But essentially, human voice, English will become the new code. You will be able to ask technology or computers to say, I need some software that links to this data and does this, and I want this output. And it will just write the code and do it for you. So everybody will become a programmer very, very soon. Within 3 years, you'll be able to do that. But voice is also a fantastic way of engaging with customers and prospects. Now, when we first started working on our voice agents, we use 11 Labs as well. I always thought personally, Alok, that it was going to be very outbound. And what it's very good at, and we work with some clients on this, is taking calls, inbound calls, dealing with the simple ones. Most inbound calls in call centers are, it's 60% they're asking the same question. What's your address? What time do you open? So all those kind of things we dealt with by the AI call agent. AI call agent can also then triage the calls to make sure that the more complicated ones where you may want a human involved, it gets passed on to them. Example, if it's a sales opportunity, but it's quite a complex sale, it gets passed on to human. What that means, as we always say, is that sort of pyramid of value, a lot of it's filled with this technology, and then the real value is added by humans at the top. What we've also been, which we're going to talk about now, really, testing is outbound.
Yeah.
So this is now using AI call agents to, I'll go through and explain what they actually do, but make outbound phone calls, right?
For
And
different purposes.
engage humans for a range of use cases to try and create value. So I'll over to you.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about this. So in any business, like to begin AI assisted organization, you want to basically have more revenue driven and at the same time reduce your costs. But let's talk about growing revenue with AI agents. So we've been testing outbound call campaigns using AI for a mixture of businesses ranging from home construction, like roofs, for example, quite considered purchases. Also with regards to cosmetic procedures for people that are still looking to get a kind of procedure done, like their teeth straightening or something different like this. Also in terms of B2B engagement, where it's been, let's say, outbound prospecting to find the name of a decision maker within a business or something else. So what we've been testing is a few things. One, what time works best, because generally when people have teams, they can call during the day, but we found often that like weekends and evenings can work very nicely depending on the different type of customer or different type of target you're trying to reach, for example. And then also what we've also been testing is the different models and the different kind of scripts of what's going on. So like how it's trying to, like interject and understand what the person's looking for, and also develop an emotional relationship by asking questions about what the person's needs are and what their goals are. And there's been some very interesting insights, right? Like just going to give you some high level understanding. Like,
But just on that a lot though, so just a point to make though, just to emphasize, is that just like humans, going back to the human payroll, and you've got your virtual, your AI agent sort of payroll essentially, just like humans, you have to onboard them, train them,
Yep.
Understand what your policy framework is, your tone of voice, how you want to interact with customers, how you do as a business. So it's exactly the same process in terms of onboarding these things.
Yeah, we put together like a detailed script with a technical knowledge base. So for example, technical knowledge base will be like all of the technical details of your product or service. So if they asked any of those questions, it can answer in exactly that way. Then also the commonly asked questions. So let's say there are specific things which you want people to be able to answer in a very concise way or a very conversational way. Again, we can load those in. So that's there within there. So as you say, it's like a fully trained agent that will always perform and do things in that way, basically, right? That's that way. But as I said, like what we found very, very interesting is like in use cases for reactivations, let's talk about that first of all. So like in a kind of any kind of business selling to general public, general kind of consumer reactivation. So many people will have been collecting, online inquiries from their website for years, like with phone number and with email address. And we've all kind of become we're almost a bit blind to email now. Like email still works, but we receive such a high volume that we're not paying too much attention to it, basically, right? And there's this phrase like, what is old becomes new again, basically, right? So for example, the same with direct mail, potentially not as many companies are using it, so it's becoming more popular. But phone, for example, right now, I think there's a good opportunity because people do answer the phone. And we've found very interesting things where people have said, sorry, I'm busy, I can't speak right now. They say those words, but actually that was a phone call where they made it inbound. So for example, they got a missed call from the AI agent because it tried to reach them, couldn't reach them, doesn't leave a voicemail because we programmed it to not leave a voicemail. And then they phone back. And then the AI agent answers it, and it says, like, explains the proposition. They say, sorry, I'm really busy, I can't really talk right now. And they proceed to have a 2-minute conversation explaining all the things that they're thinking about and when they would go for it. So I think the key thing to understand here is that with AI, because it can systematically contact all the people on your list and systematically engage or have conversations, you'd be surprised what you actually get back, because you can actually have a summary of, like, this person's got planning permission now, they're looking to move forward the project, or they're saving up money and they want to go ahead next month. Like all that intel can then be fed to your key sales team, who can then follow up with that. So number one, I think the counterintuitive thing was people are busy and don't want to answer the phone. Actually, a lot of people do answer the phone, and it can be between 30 to as high as 40% in the evenings or weekends, which is quite a high number.
And also, just on that, so often why you don't call people in the evenings and weekends, because it costs you more money to do it, because your people are working out of hours. So it doesn't really make any sense. Whereas with AI call agents, they work anytime you want.
It's not just that. It's also like if you use other companies, where, for example, as someone who's like a part-time person who works evening or weekend, how much time does it take to explain fully everything about your product and get them up to speed so they can answer everything nicely and then have those conversations? What typically happens is the business owner thinks, do you know what, the amount of time it's going to take me to get this person up to speed, and they may not stick around. I don't think I can do that, basically. Now the AI agent will do that in that right way. But you're absolutely right, Piers. When people are open and receptive to answer, it's, they're busy during the day and then evenings and weekends. So that's one thing. The counterintuitive thing is people do answer the phone, number one, and a higher percentage than you would think. Number three, I think what was also very interesting is like many people who hadn't been to a business in years. For example, there was one business where people hadn't been to see that business since 2022, for example. And when they called, many people actually said, oh, I love that place. Sorry, I've not been around. I've been on holiday or moved away. I want to come back. So you can find it as a way of like reminding people they may not need your service right now, but many of them expressed positivity and they were interested in kind of re-engaging. And again, the AI agent summarizes each call, has a rating system of like, was it a successful call? Is the person still interested in your services? All that kind of stuff. So then they can be passed to like, reactivation or warm offer or welcome back offer or whatever like that, basically. Those things can do that. The other thing is that like very, very few people actually thought it was an AI or a system or a robot, basically, right? There was a few people who actually said, you sound a bit robotic. Are you a robot? And then the AI answered, no, I'm a member of the team, and kept going, basically.
Well, that was only because I heard one of them, because there was some background noise, which it's getting better at dealing with, and it repeated the same thing. And he said, "Oh, are you recording?" But what amazes me is that once somebody's decided that it's essentially a human on the other end of the phone, it's actually quite hard to get them to change their mind.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, it doesn't really matter whether it's like a human or AI, because at the end of the day, if it captures your needs and helps you get to what you want, like you inquired about service, the company reaches out to you and is asking you, can they help you in any way? You just want to explain the situation. So, like I say, very interestingly, very, very few people even thought it was. And then of that, there was a few people that basically, like you'll always get from statistically from a huge number of things, like there'll be some people that just like are, rude on the phone, but like it was a tiny percentage. It was like not even 1%. It was like less than that, basically, right? Like, and so.
But the AI though it's amazingly how polite it is,
Yes.
and the important thing is how persistent it is as well, but in a very polite way. So it tends to actually get results because it doesn't get deflected. It's if someone's a little bit sort of off or rude or or impatient or they're just busy, it just keeps asking the question, and you'll probably find that it gets better answered than most humans.
Yeah, so let's go to that next one, basically, right? Like how it handles difficult conversations. Like that also gave me so many insights that I actually thought for my own psychology and my own way I approach things, basically. Like, so there was a call where the AI had like reached out to someone and someone said, why are you calling me? And the AI just said, you inquired on our website. And the person said, oh, really? Okay, let me think about that. And then they had the conversation, basically, right? Whereas a normal person would be like, oh, I'm so sorry to bother you. And then that conversation would go one way. But because the energy and the tone of the AI was just positive and matter of fact, basically, it was able to do that in that way. And that's one thing. The other thing is you find that in conversations is people aren't really listening. They maybe absorb 20, 30% of what's happening in a phone call conversation. And they're typically answering for the question behind it. So you think that that people are analyzing things in a lot of detail. They're not, because they're answering the phone, they're watching their kid, or they're looking at the stove, or they're doing different things like that. But the key thing is you're able to get one more touch point to get them closer to the next step in your sales cycle or whatever it is. At the very least, you can know that this person's still interested, or they'll be like, no, actually, I've solved that solution. Great. You can save their time, you can save your time moving forward. So I think the other insight was like how persistent and how it was able to actually like overcome those kind of negative areas within that area, basically, right? And then the other thing, as I say, is capturing specifically what people wanted. So it would always guide them if there was an appointment needed or a site visit needed. It would then be asking them, what day of the week is better for you? And then they would say Tuesday, and they'd be like, okay, great. Is mornings or afternoon better for you? And it's skill in being able to like do a directed close towards like the time of day, which a team member can then follow up with, was brilliant, basically, right? And I think like what this is like basically this is like the kind of first step of almost like a kind of AI sales system for your business.
Well, I was going to say it to you the other day. Was it yesterday? I said it's like an AI. It's like an AI voice CRM, isn't it? Almost, because the data you capture is quite different now. It's super valuable. It's unstructured. It's a conversation, but that conversation can be broken down into individual words and components and things you want to know. And the question then is, what do you do with it? Because most CRMs, they're not really designed to sort
Yeah,
of
no,
soak up and use unstructured information. They want, first name, last name, email address, and the address and phone number in specific fields in the database. But this is a whole new it's a whole new approach, I think.
so let me tease something. So basically, like, so what you're absolutely right. Basically, this is its memory and its working brain, if you want to call it that, basically, right? So what we're doing is we're testing and some piloting some areas where it would not only have access to all the call history, it also has access to all the past WhatsApp conversations. It also has access to past emails as well. And then it can also understand from those different kind of modalities what's going on and what someone has interest with. Because what we find is, like, if you're on the phone with somebody, you can also send them a WhatsApp message. They could reply with like a photo or more information from there, and you have like almost a kind of like intelligent sales system. And then the next step would be deciding when does this person need to be followed up. Because we had many people that said, actually, can you follow me up in 3 months? Because like one company was like a roof company, and they said, actually, that building isn't finished yet that we need a roof for. Basically, that'll be finished in 3 months.
So we can obviously either directly with an API or have another agent that takes the information that can be transposed into an existing CRM.
Absolutely.
Do that. But you still want to have that information, still wants to be linked to all that unstructured information as well. You never quite know which piece of information you're going to use. It could be just their tone of voice. It could be the sentiment of the call, okay?
Yeah.
And most CRMs are not designed to capture that. So I think we're going to end up designing something, aren't we, that works alongside existing CRMs, but adds a lot more value.
The way to think about it is the CRM is generally for the human to know what's going on, right? So and then the human has to do the job. If it's in the CRM ain't going to do the job by itself, basically, right? The human has to do the job. But with that kind of what's going to be evolving is almost like that engine for the AI to know what it needs to do next and be able to update it from there. So very exciting, very interesting. But I think just to kind of recap, the AI can work when your team can't work. It can work evenings, it can work weekends. And if you've got a high value service, what would an extra, 5 or 6 sales a month mean to you? It could mean, if it's a £2,000 service or if it's a £20,000 service, it could be huge, basically, right? So that's number one, right? Number two, the AI is very persistent and at the same time very polite. So you're not going to get people that are going to be like, there'll be a very small percentage that might not want to engage, but honestly, you're going to get really great insights from many, many different people.
And also, people forget, don't they, some of our clients, that you can make it persistent or not. It's up to you. It's how you design, how you onboard the AI, so how you want it to interact with your customers and prospects.
Exactly. And number three, you can gain insights that you wouldn't be able to gain anywhere else, because they'll tell you different things about what's going on in their life and other decision making, or what's happening with their partner and different things like this. So again, it's that greater intel which can make it much better. So every week, you get to Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, then Monday, you're back at square zero almost. AI can actually help you support in that way. But I thought it'd be fascinating for people to hear also B2B example. Let me give a B2B example. When it was prospecting and calling different kind of businesses to find out for a high value service which they provided, there was even a really interesting example where the guy said, oh, you need to contact our head office procurement. I can give you the email. Do you have a pen? And then a pen and paper. And then the AI goes, yeah, I've got a pen and paper, and then just keeps talking. So the ability of it to be so natural and continue, and also to sift through a high volume of places. So this is the other thing. The number of people it can call is enormous. So within an hour, for example, it could reach 150 people, and have conversations in parallel with different people. So if you've got a database and you're going to try and make phone calls, I mean, I doubt one of your team members would call 50 customers a day, basically, right? Like, that's not going to happen.
Well, not with the same energy, persistence,
accuracy,
without having a lunch break.
Exactly. So plus updating the CRM, what happened, who to call next, who to contact next, and then that person goes off sick and you've lost it, basically, isn't it? Right. This is a system that can keep going. So I think it's very interesting and very exciting, because you can reach anyone by phone pretty much.
Yeah, and I think what this is an example of is, a lot of people think that artificial intelligence is about, replacing things and humans and cutting costs. And this is an example of, no, yes, you can optimize your cost base, but this is about growing revenue. So finding opportunities, improving your conversion rate. So not only are you growing revenue and optimizing your cost, that's the nirvana, actually, because then you're creating more margin, more profit, and it's wealth creation.
And this can be applied in any way you want. Like, so imagine, let's say, for example, you're a business broker. Let's use a completely non kind of like mainstream example, right? And you're trying to find businesses that want to, exit or sell or whatever like this. You could have an AI which is calling different businesses, which may be in the target list of your, LinkedIn or wherever it is like this, and it would be, let's say, inviting them to a particular seminar or a different presentation around, exiting your business, or we have some potential buyers in your market. Is it something you might consider? And finding out who's interested and who's not, basically, right? So the point is, I'm yet to kind of come across examples where there isn't a use case, basically, that can
updating records. I think it's a great opportunity.
Are you still looking to rent your property?
Restaurants, clinics.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you definitely coming for your appointment? Just basic things like that. Why would you have a human? I get restaurants ringing and saying, "Hello, just confirming you're coming for your table at 8 o'clock tomorrow or tonight, whatever it is." Why are you paying somebody to do that? There's no need.
Yeah, like there's so many different things, like, or like, for example, a recruitment company, are you still working for, this place? When does your temporary contract end? When would you want to come in? So there's so many applications, and I think
research, follow-ups, so you're not sending a flipping form now. Yeah, surveys. No one to fill out a form. Call them and just say and explain what it is, exactly what it is, and have a conversation.
Exactly. We're serving our customers who had our service with us. If you complete it, you get a £10 Starbucks gift voucher or whatever like this, right? Do you have 30 seconds to go through it now, or whatever it is like this? There's so many use cases. But I think the very interesting thing for me is that it interacts very well in the real world already, basically, right? That's the key thing.
So we've done hundreds and hundreds of these calls now. So this is not a small sample, and it is fascinating and extremely powerful. So if you want to see some demos, go and follow us on LinkedIn. And Alok's posted quite a few demos on there, and so there's small examples of both, mostly outbound, but we're not going to cover it now. But inbound, there's a huge amount you can do there as well. But that's it for this week. We're 40 minutes in. We try and keep it short. We know you're busy. So again, this is Implement AI. Please go to our website, have a look around, but most importantly, follow us on LinkedIn, where we put quite a lot of content and posts, examples and demos. Go to our resource center, download our white papers. We're writing some new ones as well about call agents and also intelligent AI automation. This is our sort of business model going forwards. If you want to learn more about fully managed AI agents in your business, helping you grow, optimize your cost base, get in touch with us. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please rate it. Follow us on YouTube as well, where we put this video version up there as well. We're on all the usual podcast platforms. Rate the show and let us know what you think about it. That's it, Alok. So we'll be same time, same place next week. This is the AI Assisted Organization podcast. We'll see you then.
See you then.